I'd say 99% of the population in Dingle are blow-ins.
Every year I have people coming in and you can see this particular look on their face thinking, what can I do in my life to turn it around so that I can work out how I can work and live here?
2-3 years, I'm getting the saying like, oh, you have Kerry accent, like last week they say I have Dublin accent as well. I was like, I'm not having Dublin accent.
It'll take 10 generations from now for my great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren not to be blow-ins and to be considered local.
Famously, as a local said to me, if your grandparents' bones are not in the graveyard, man, you ain't local.